Hello teachers. Now here in Barcelona there's a new private language school that's just opened up, and it's quite interesting because when you're walking past it you can see into exactly 4 classrooms. The reason is that it's got all these glass partitions which gives it the feel of a giant aquarium, but of course it's got teachers and students instead of fish. Now, it's in the city centre. I find myself walking past it quite a lot, 2 or 3 times a week. And whenever I do, I find myself slowing down so I can have a good look into these 4 classrooms. Don't judge me, you do the same. Anyway, I think that I've made quite an interesting observation. No matter what time of the day I'm walking past the school, as long as there's still classes going on at the time, more often than not, all 4 of the teachers in all 4 classrooms are talking. Is that surprising? Now, my experience would tell me that really there's nothing particularly unusual about this school or the teachers or the teaching. You know, it could be representative of virtually any school in Barcelona or even in Europe. And so with this in mind, I decided to conduct a little experiment. You see, I wanted to know, is it really the case that all 4 of these teachers are talking whenever I pass, or is that just the way I'm seeing it? So what I decided to do is that each time I passed the school, I would look at all 4 classrooms and make a little note of what's going on in each of them according to 4 different descriptors. And the descriptors are, number 1, the teacher is talking to the students. So maybe giving instructions, maybe clarifying a piece of language, grammar, for example, language definition. That was number 1. Number 2, the teacher is talking with the students, making conversation, small talk, that kind of thing. Number 3, the students are collaborating in small groups or in pairs, doing something together. Number 4, students are working as individuals, heads down, maybe exercises, activities in their course book. Those were my 4 descriptors. So how did this go? How did I get on? Well, you might not be surprised to hear that this experiment failed. You see, it was just impossible to be able to describe what's going on in any classroom in an instant. And it was completely naive of me to even think it might be possible. Let me give you one example. On the very first day I passed to do this experiment, the teacher in the classroom nearest the street, she seemed to be talking to her students. But then upon closer examination, it turned out that the rest of the students were involved in some kind of activity. And so in fact, the teacher was only talking to 2 or 3 of them. And so was this her giving instructions? Actually, it looked like more like a conversation. So perhaps these students had finished the task early and the teacher was just making conversation with them. It was impossible for me to know. And so scientific experiment abandoned. Classroom dynamics are just too complex to be able to describe in an instant. You know, a lesson is just too complicated a beast. And even if you are given the opportunity to watch the lesson from the start until the end, even then there's possibility for disagreement. Even then it can be subjective. There was a time a few years ago when I was invited to give a demonstration lesson at an English language teaching conference, and I was working with a group of teenagers, and meanwhile there's an auditorium of teachers watching me at work. And at the end of the lesson, the demonstration lesson I gave, it was time for questions. And one of the teachers said, "Jamie, I enjoyed the lesson, but how can you justify such a teacher-centered approach?" And before I could even answer her question, another teacher said, wait, that was not teacher-centered. How can you say that that was teacher-centered, what we just saw? So here we've got a situation where both of these teachers saw the same thing, me at work, but they are disagreeing on whether or not it was teacher-centered. You know, that all makes me think about this sign, this image that you'll see if you ever go to Telecom Paris Tech, if you attend a TESOL France event. And as you can probably guess, this image tells you that this is the door to a classroom. And over the years, I've noticed that many teachers will react against it. In fact, just a few days ago, I posted this image on Instagram and I said, teachers, what do you think of this image? Does it depict teaching in a positive way, a negative way, or a neutral way? And let me show you the answers here. Only 5 people thought that it was a positive depiction of teaching. The vast majority thought that it was either negative or neutral. So it depends on how you see it. It depends on how you see it. It depends on how you see it. Now, despite my failed experiment, I think that I can still offer 2 conclusions. And the first one is that all over the world, classrooms do in fact look like this to some extent. And the second conclusion is that language teachers talk a lot. It's true, we do. In fact, most of the language teachers I talk with would seem to agree that we should reduce our teacher talk somewhat. On the other hand, teacher talk is unavoidable. Our students expect it, and it is absolutely essential. So does this mean that we're living some big contradiction? I don't know. But what I would say is that it's not just a case of reducing teacher talk, it's also a case of improving the quality of our teacher talk, improving our classroom communication skills. And if this is something that interests you, I could make a little suggestion, and that is embrace storytelling. Because when you improve as a storyteller, you improve as a classroom communicator, and you might just find yourself giving better instructions, giving better definitions and explanations, seeing new ways to get your students to talk, asking better questions and responding to students' answers more effectively, recognizing the narrative in the materials that you use, video for example, and seeing new ways for exploiting it in the classroom. Storytelling allows us to work on our teacher talk quality. It allows us to develop as classroom communicators. And it allows us to develop an awareness, for example, that less really is more. It really does pay to be concise. And so ultimately, this can help us to reduce our teacher talk. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.